Natasha, it's time for us to take a look at the newspaper headlines now in the paper trail. We do this every morning. We discuss some of the stories and then we'll leave it up to you to go to work and discuss with your colleagues as well. Googs, we'll start off with the Star, right? You'll see the mayoral candidates that have been fielded, and the headline is very, very, very simple. Flags drop in race for Jacob ZUma. So I don't know if you watch racing at all, but basically when you drop the flag, that's when the race starts.
Yeah.
Yes. We spoke to, obviously, outgoing mayor yesterday. We asked him if he would throw his hat behind any candidates, and he was very reluctant to do so. But now we understand that the ANC has fielded Jeff Mahubo, which came off as...
other candidates there. So the ANC has 3.
Yes.
The EFF has 1, Musa Novella. Of course, the MMC for Finance in the city is the candidate for the DA. Quite interesting that Congolose fielding 3 as opposed to just 1 person.
It shows that there's unity in the party, or maybe just a lack of direction. So for me, if I'm voting, if I'm in the council, I'm going, guys, you don't know what you want, so...
I'm going to give my vote to one of the other parties.
Yes.
And of course, it also talks about how the IFP could potentially play quite an important role when council meets a little bit later on today. Because Herman Mashaba was telling us yesterday that, you know, the future of Joburg will be decided by 270 politicians who really care about the politics of the stomach. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out.
There's actually 4 ANC candidates here.
Is it 4?
Yes.
Is it 4?
Because there's also
Jacob
ZUma, so it's actually kind of lot.
That's even worse. In the business day, SAA is still in the news and things are dire. So apparently the ministers of finance, that's Minister Amabhungane, Minister of Public Enterprises, that's Minister Gordon, are locked in conversations about what to do with SAA. Apparently the airline needs about 2 billion rand to keep going, namely just to pay salaries, which you know they're paying in installments. They're paying some this week and some next week, and also to pay suppliers. If it doesn't get that immediate 2 billion rand cash injection, it could potentially cease to trade. So there's quite a serious conversation about what happens with SAA. In fact, the headline is Ministers Mal SAA Lifeline or shutdown, because that seems to be the 2 options on the table at the moment.
And this couldn't come at a worse time for the airline, because we know that, you know, holiday season is peak season for airlines. If they had been operational, they'd make a lot of money in this period, but when they're not operating, they'll also lose a lot of money, much needed money. So very, very pertinent questions.
Apparently, though, commercial banks are willing to advance the money that the airline needs, but only on receipt of a full loan guarantee from Treasury, which I don't know if Minister Amabhungane will be quite keen on doing that.
The thing with advancing money is you need to pay it back.
At some point, yeah, it's a loan.
Yes, and so I don't know if that's a good idea either. Why must we pay it back is a headline in Sowetan. And this, of course, is about a municipality which is accidentally, they accidentally paid 13 million rand more in salaries. And now the employees are like, we're not going to pay their money back. So imagine, for example, payday comes, instead of getting your 1 salary, 11 days prior, yes, you get, I guess, what you assume is a bonus.
Yeah.
And then you understand that, oh, that was a mistake, you need to pay that money back. What would you do?
I'd pay it back.
That's what I'd do.
Because the courts have also been quite clear. If money ends up in your account and it's money that you're not meant to have, and you spend it, you could potentially be charged with theft. It's really not, it's not a great...
I saw this with the students who was accidentally paid money from NSS. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Millions.
Yes, and managed to spend just under 1 million rand in a matter of hours.
Yes.
And she's currently in the Specialized Commercial Crimes Court.
That is correct.
Quite a serious matter there. So, yeah, the employees are saying it was a gift. It was not a gift. It was an error. And at some point, the money will need to be paid back. So pay
if
back
I'm the
now.
municipality, I'm just not going to pay salaries in December. Done. Money back.
Yikes. No salary in December.
But you got your money already.
Yeah, but is it going to make it to December?
It's not my problem. I asked him to pay it back. He chose not to. So now I'm going to dock December's pay. That's pretty much it.
Yikes.
That's where we need to wrap up, especially with this morning's paper trail. But stay tuned, because coming up next is Today in Politics.
Former President Jacob Zuma's tax records remain some of the most sought-after documents in the country. First, it was Public Protector Advocate Busiswe Mkhwebane seeking access to the records, with SARS saying such confidential client information is off limits.
Absolutely. Now, Media House Amabhungane, and also Financial Mail are challenging the constitutionality of the law safeguarding the SARS-client confidentiality. And they argue that the tax affairs of any senior member of the executive charged with corruption should be made public. So for more on this, we're joined in the studio by Right to Know spokesperson, Jacob ZUma. Jacob, good morning, and thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So why would two media houses want access to the president's tax records? Is this interesting, or is it in the public interest?
Okay, just a bit of background. Around Feb this year, Financial Mail they launched a PIA to SARS to get access to the financial records of the former president. And there was a refusal from SARS. Even after the appeal, there was also a refusal. Now, the two media companies are taking this whole issue to court just to make sure that the court declares its Tax Administration Act and also some section of PIA to be unconstitutional because it limits the access to information and also freedom freedom of expression. This basically is public interest because remember they are looking for the records during the period where Jacob ZUma was the president, and if they find out that the president wasn't paying the tax by the time when he was a president, why should everyone else pay the tax? And also, you look at the integrity of SARS. If they were not collecting the money from the president, then what does it say about them? So it also looks at the records which are available. There's mountains of evidence. If you check the President Keeper's book, if we check what came out of the Public Protector's report, Securing Comfort, it simply shows that the president was getting some of the money, but it wasn't being declared. So it's obviously public interest.
Okay, so here's the thing, right? And you are correct in that it does become public interest in that manner. What I now need to understand is, have these allegations been proven, right? Because even in the Public Protector's report, it just remains allegations. There's no direct link that links the president, or former president rather, to the money going into his account. That's the first thing. And even in Jacques Pauw's book, President's Keeper, the allegations are there, but there's never been any evidence presented. So that's the first matter. The second matter is, this is not the first time that any publication or media house has tried to get Jacob ZUma's tax returns. In the past, as you correctly point out, they've tried, and he's always maintained that that's his personal information. People shouldn't have access to it. What has changed recently, though, is that he went on Twitter about a month ago, and he allowed the Public Protector access. He said, look, guys, if you want to see what's going on there, in the interest of transparency, by all means, go ahead. Despite Edward Kiesbetter having said, no, we're not going to give you access to his accounts. So now that that's changed, I'm wondering if that had any kind of influence in the Amabhungane and Financial Mail, then deciding, okay, we're going to now pursue this matter further, because obviously he's had a change of heart regarding giving us access to his documents.
Well, let me start with the Twitter that he sent saying the Public Protector can definitely get access to the tax records if they want. That simply shows the change of heart, and it simply shows that the president is not necessarily willing to conceal the records. But when it comes to the allegations that you're saying they haven't been proven, we saw just immediately after the book was released, SARS, State Security Agency, they wanted to take Jack Pauw's to court, but when the governance changed in SARS, then those they were withdrawn from court. So, and as yet we haven't seen the president taking Jack Pauw's to court, even with the the information that is contained in the book. That simply means maybe the president is afraid that if they take the journalists to court, more information will be released, and therefore the information which is contained in that book will be proven. So currently,
well, not necessarily. So the absence of a challenge doesn't necessarily legitimize an allegation.
Well, that is correct. I accept. But also the fact that the president is not challenging that. Therefore, shouldn't they? Preclude access to the information, especially if this information can maybe
Exonerate him.
Yeah, I mean, if it can unearth the fact that the president was not following the law, it can be that SARS was not following what it's supposed to do. Therefore, it's in the public interest, and also until the president has then taken the whole thing to court and then exonerated himself, then we will definitely believe on what we read from the book and what we get from the public protector.
So Jacques Pau alleges that the president didn't file tax returns in 7 years while he was in office. So over 9 years, he didn't file tax returns in 7. Sometimes, if that happens, you can then go into some sort of negotiation with SARS and rectify the matter in retrospect, right? So if, for example, it turns out that maybe that was the case, but now the matter has been handled and rectified, then where's the wrongdoing?
So look, there were allegations that the president was getting paid by a certain businessman in Durban. And when that was exposed, then the president went back and paid the money. They paid back the salary that was alleged to have been paid to him. That simply means, there are also allegations that even a few years into his presidency, he was still receiving the money from that particular businessman. But they paid it back. But for me, that's an admission of guilt, that you were not disclosing all the information tax related. So even if the money gets paid in retrospect, like you're saying, it still confirms the fact that the president may somehow have not been following the law during his term of presidency, and therefore Amabhungane and Financial Mail are therefore they should get the financial records as they have requested.
Okay, so thank you very much for coming in this morning. It's much appreciated. That is Right to Know spokesperson Jacob ZUma speaking to us about Financial Mail and Amabhungane's bid to get access to former President Jacob Zuma's tax records.